The red dragon Korialstrasz was ruminating, spiralling, whilst working himself up into a goddamned tizzy. All of the dragons from each flight had been ordered to wait for word from the aspects, and once that word was received, they would all take to the skies. Neltharion's precious disc would be used to decimate the demon's lines, and the dragons would then descend upon any remaining stragglers with terrifying force. It was a simple, faultless plan. He didn't trust this plan at all. But he was also loyal to his queen, his mate, and so he'd done and said absolutely nothing.
Ever the thinker, my love.
Alexstrasza, you're supposed to be with the other aspects.
I've made excuses for my momentary absence. Neltharion's not pleased, but who cares? He's rude.
Korialstrasz bowed his head.
How may I be of service to you, my queen?
And a hint of indecision then suddenly glinted in the Lifebinder's eyes, making Korialstrasz worry even more so.
I need you to disobey me.
Beg your pardon?
All save the sentinels that each of us have posted are supposed to remain here in these caverns until the moment of the launch. But I wish you to ignore that command and leave.
And where am I supposed to go?
I don't know precisely. I'm hoping that you'll be able to sense exactly where once you're beyond the barrier. I want you to find Krasus.
Krasus? Of course. That mysterious mage probably would have some answers, come to think of it.
He should still be with the Night Elf.
No. He was near us, only a short time ago. Isira told me that a Night Elf called Malfurion sought to act as his messenger through her. However, she distrusted such an action, so made him wait until the moment was right.
And?
When Isira tried to call Malfurion forward, he'd vanished.
Korialstrasz's anxiety and cortisol levels increased. The journey here from the Night Elven lands was quite far, really, especially for one who could not fly several miles in the space of a few minutes. You wouldn't do that just for the giggles.
Why would Krasus come here?
That's what I'd like you to find out.
I will do my best to find him then. That may prove harder than you think.
Alexstrasza snorted, shutting her eyes in thought for a moment before nodding.
I think it's time for you to know.
Know what?
My love, you've felt the closeness between you and Krasus. You would almost describe him as a clutch brother, wouldn't you?
He'd never really thought about it, but hearing his queen articulate the bond in such a way actually did kinda ring true. Yes, Krasus did hold such an esteemed place in Korialstrasz's heart, and it was nothing to do with the scale they'd shared in order to overcome their weaknesses, either. Something about that weird pale bloke had made Korialstrasz come to trust him fully, even if he didn't really understand why.
Know this, my love. The reason you and Krasus are so close is that he and you are one and the same.
Beg your pardon?
Krasus is you, Korialstrasz. You much older, much wiser. He is you countless millennia forward.
But that's impossible.
The young red dragon then thought for a moment, and then remembered that he's in a franchise with a literal aspect of time.
Nosdormu? Is this some trick of his?
Nosdormu has some part in this, yes. I can't tell you exactly how, though. Just know that Krasus is here because he must be.
Again, Korialstrasz considered this revelation for a moment.
Then the outcome of the war is assured. The dragon soul will help us triumph. My concerns were for naught.
Your concerns are valid. We don't know anything about the outcome. Krasus fears that Nosdormu has sent him here because the timeline has shifted. There was a point where I had to consider eliminating him and his companion in order to preserve it, but it soon became evident that matters had gone beyond such.
Korialstrasz's eyes then widened.
You would have slain me?
At Krasus's insistence, my love.
He mulled that over for a second and saw her reasoning.
Fair enough. Forgive me. I will go searching for him, my queen.
Thank you. His memories were much damaged by the journey to our town, perhaps because he already existed here as you. Still, he is sharp of wit in most ways. If there was something he urgently needed to discuss, then it's probably smart for us to find him.
I'll go immediately.
Alexstrasza then dipped her head in gratitude.
I must pretend that you do this by your own leave, Korialstrasz.
Of course. I won't fail you, my queen.
Alexstrasza then buggered off, with the young red male waiting long enough for her to be nowhere near, before buggering off too. It wasn't difficult at all to leave the mountain itself, with most of the other dragons just kind of sat around, poised, waiting for the command to fly. Evading the sentinels beyond the mountain was going to be slightly more difficult though. Kind of. There were those of Korialstrasz's own flight that were actually kind of easy to sneak past. After all, he knew their personalities quite well. Alexstrasza, for example, was young and eagle-eyed, but also ADHD as shit. He'd obviously become quite bored at some point, and was now totally dedicated to batting rocks with his tail. Ain't nobody gonna break his focus from that extremely important task. Eventually though, after a whole bunch of sneakies, Korialstrasz made it to the magical barrier, flapping his wings as hard as he could to push through what felt like flying through treacle, before squelch farting out the other side, with very little control, at full speed. But after he regained control, he landed, touching the scale that his older self had traded to him whilst picturing the bloke in his mind. It made so much more sense now. He had wondered why the exchange of scales had made any difference whatsoever to that which had ailed them. By swapping pieces, they'd made each other slightly more complete. That was why. Korialstrasz then concentrated really hard, seeking out that link that only two that were really one could possibly have. He had his doubts that Krasus was still nearby. After all, if it were him, and it was, he would not have given up until he'd found a way to enter through the barrier. The fact that Krasus hadn't suggested the bloke had potentially been forced to flee. Rather than allow that thought to send him spiraling again though, the red male continued to reach out further. Over countless lands his mind stretched, hunting that which was him, and he sensed nothing. Nada. Diddly bollocks. And just as he started to really worry about what that meant, he then sensed something. Something familiar. Familiar bollocks. Immediately launching into the air and soaring forward with immense speed and focus. So focused, in fact, that he didn't realise he was under attack until it was too late. Claws tearing into his back. With a startled roar, he did a barrel roll, the monstrous visage of a black dragon filling his gaze in the process.
Stop! By the glory of the aspects, I demand that you...
In response, the other dragon simply opened its gob. Korialstrasz stopped flapping instantly, his body dropping like a rock, narrowly avoiding a fearsome burst of molten flame from the black dragon's face.
Leave me be! There's no need for confrontation between us.
You will not interfere.
Korialstrasz had no idea what this bloke's problem was, but there was a look in his eyes that suggested utter madness, which only strengthened the Red's fear that something bad had happened to Krasus. The ebony behemoth then dropped down on Korialstrasz's back, forcing him to descend. However, the Red allowed this to happen with the intention of spinning out from under his foe at the last moment. Unfortunately though, that's not how things played out. Korialstrasz's adversary suddenly and unexpectedly released his hold as yet another black dragon appeared from behind a nearby peak. That second dragon colliding with Korialstrasz, sending them both spinning out of control toward the jagged earth below. You'll slay us both!
For the glory of my master.
Upon closer inspection, the young Red noted that this second foe's wings were torn and broken. The mad lad could no longer fly properly, which was probably why he was intent on sacrificing himself and taking Korialstrasz with him. Not today though, Korialstrasz thought, as he started to beat his own wings in order to direct their fall and maneuver himself to be positioned on top of his foe. The injured dragon roared and attempted to flip them back around to no avail, and another roar from above indicated that the first black dragon had also realised what was about to happen. With perfect timing, Korialstrasz used all four legs to kick his giant attacker away at the last moment, whilst beating his powerful wings as hard as he could to lift his own considerable mass and halt his descent. The injured dragon could do nothing but exhale sharply as he collided with the ground at terminal velocity, his bones shattering instantly, blood spraying everywhere.
You must die.
Korialstrasz managed to avoid the deadly talons of the other dragon's attack, but the bastard just kept pressing relentlessly, slicing and tearing and chomping in frenzy, its claws digging deep into Korialstrasz's chest, the beast's fetid breath causing the Red to gag.
I have you.
The insane creature then inhaled, no doubt preparing one last fire breath attack that would definitely finish an opponent at such close range. So, Out of sheer desperation, Korialstrasz thrust his own head forward, clamping his jaws tight around his adversary's neck, squeezing with all of his might to cut off the air passage. The other dragon shaking violently, the forces it had sought to unleash now having nowhere to go. And so, ba-boom! He exploded. The red male then roared in agony as burning ichor burst out and poured all over him. The pain was way too much. Korialstrasz losing consciousness as he plummeted down toward his own inevitable demise. Meanwhile, Archimonde watched his forces retreat from Ronin's spell and the advancing Night Elven host. The demon commander actually feeling the elves' sense of triumph and hearing their roars of victory. How bloody easy it was to deceive these stupid idiots. They think they're going to win, the silly wankers. And with that, the gigantic demon turned, aura-farmed for a few seconds, and then slowly and confidently strutted off-screen. Meanwhile again, oh! That's not a sound you want the person carrying you several hundred feet up in the air to make, Malfurion thought.
What is it? I need to land, quickly!
Malfurion scanned the area below. There were woods. Lots of woods. But then he spotted some grassy plains. Nice. Somewhere soft to land. And so he pointed frantically.
I will try.
Unfortunately though, Krasus didn't seem to try very hard at all. His flight had grown very haphazard. The spot to which Malfurion had pointed to very quickly disappeared, as the two instead zigzagged towards a copse of trees that were much more likely to break their necks than their fall. But, at the last minute, Krasus grunted loudly and lifted them into the air a bit higher, narrowly missing the canopy. The good news, beyond those trees lay more open plain. The bad news, Krasus' descent was a little bit too fast for Malfurion's taste.
You may wish to save yourself.
Before even finishing that sentence, the mage that sounds constipated released the druid unintentionally. Malfurion reacting quickly enough, reaching out to the grass below and willing it to rapidly grow, taller and thicker. Although every bone in his body shook, he then survived the impact with the ground as a result. Unfortunately though, he couldn't react quickly enough to aid the dragon mage, who just face-planted the ground several feet further ahead. The instant Krasus fell, his temporary white wings dissipated like dust as he kind of just bounced off and vanished from sight.
Master Krasus!
Jumping to his feet, the druid raced forward through the field in the direction that Krasus had bounced, but of his companion there was no sign. Oh, there he is. Kneeling by the mage, Malfurion studied him for any outward injuries, not seeing any, which was great, though Aviana's feather did slip from Krasus' chest, brown and withered, and just like the wings, it too then crumbled to dust. So that was fun, for all of about 3 minutes. Malfurion then checked Krasus for any inward injuries, i.e. broken bones and stuff, and again, despite the much harder fall, Krasus appeared untouched.
Oh! I am so tired of waking up in this condition. Careful, Krasus. You should not move yet. I will soon not be moving at all, Malfurion. I believe that I'm dying. What do you mean? How? What even happened to you? Is it trapped wind? No, it's not me. Another. I'm tied to Korialstrasz, and he to me. I think he's been attacked, and if he goes, there's no hope for me.
Malfurion looked Krasus over again, trying to find any clue as to how he might be able to help.
Is there really no hope? Perhaps if you could heal him, but he's far from here, and I...
Krasus then grew silent, and Malfurion felt despair starting to rise up. Cenarius had taught him so many skills that could be applied in this situation, but not when the victim lay countless miles away. However...
Krasus, that piece on your chest, a bit of him for a bit of me.
Krasus' eyes then shut as the pale mage grew very still and very passed out.
His scale.
Malfurion ran a finger across the scale, marvelling at its texture and sensing the power within it. It was an audacious, impossible plan, but also the only one available.
Hold on, Master Krasus.
Placing both hands on the scale, the druid opened his mind to his surroundings. The grass already knew him now. They were practically best friends, so it reacted to his call immediately. The wind also reacted, sort of wobbling his fringe a little bit, and the earth stirred, curious as to what the bloody hell was going on over here then. And whilst all of those things were happening, Malfurion also established a link between himself and the Dragon Mage, allowing himself to flow into the scale and seek of it the bond to its original wearer. And to his surprise, all of that was actually quite easy and worked. Immediately, his senses took him across miles, across lands, to a harsh mountainous region, a place where he felt a horrible, overwhelming sense of loss, nearly blacking out as a result. But he steeled and stabilized himself. He could not allow himself to think Korialstrasz already dead. Such speculation would condemn both the dragon and Krasus. Sensing a terrible battle in that place, splintered thoughts lingering in the air revealed that Korialstrasz's foe had been black dragons that were now defeated. So that was one less thing to worry about. Kind of a pointless paragraph. Malfurion then called to his surroundings yet again, this time asking for their sacrifice. One of the first true lessons that Cenarius had taught him. Only life could give life. The earth, the flora, they had the capability of regenerating in a manner no animal could. The druid did ask a lot of them though, so no one could really blame them if they'd turned around and said, piss off. However, they didn't do that. To his relief, Malfurion felt the land give of itself for his efforts. And exhilarated by the sensation of life force now flowing into him, the druid then returned his attention back to Krasus, the energy pouring out through the druid's fingertips into the scale affixed to the Dragon Mage's chest. Malfurion's heart raced, his brow drenched with sweat due to the sheer amount of power flowing through him, but he went ahead and gritted his teeth, maintaining the bond for as long as necessary. The Pale Mage grunted, his eyes slowly opening, informing Malfurion that he had done enough now and everything was going to be fine. And it was at this point that the druid noticed the grass for yards around him had turned black. In fact, the entire field was now dry and dead, trees and all, but he felt the slight stirring of life beneath the earth, reassuring him and us that eventually things would return and grow anew. So don't worry about it.
What did you do? I had to save you. I did the only thing I could think of.
Krasus shook his head, pushing himself up to a sitting position.
That's not what I meant, Malfurion. Do you have even the slightest concept of what you've just accomplished? It was needed. I regret having to ask so much of the land, but it was willing to give it.
Krasus then noted the blackened grass for the first time, his eyes narrowing.
Malfurion, this is not possible. It was based off of my Shando's teachings. I merely modified it to suit the situation, and managed a result that should have been beyond you, beyond any spellcaster. It's astounding.
Clueless as to what the bloody hell Krasus was even going on about, Malfurion then asked,
Do you sense Korialstrasz? Is he well? The link is fading, but I can still sense him for the moment. He is fit, but his mind is confused. He recalls the battle, and then he was supposed to find me, but there are gaps.
Krasus then randomly chuckled, out of nowhere, to himself.
Now we're more alike than ever, he and I. Truly the fates mock me. Are we to wait for him? We are, but not for the reason he hopes for. Knowing him as I do, he no doubt wishes to take me back to Alexstrasza, but we've no more time. I have this terrible feeling that we need to return to the host as soon as possible.